I've been given a second chance, and it's one I never thought I'd get. When I was reborn into this life, I could have chosen anything but him. Ethan Carter. He was the man I once thought was my soul's match, the man I'd convinced myself I needed to love. But not this time. This time, I chose Noah Brooks, the quiet, unassuming man who lived in the village, cutting pig fodder for a living. My mother thought I was out of my mind. After all, everyone knew that the entire village was obsessed with Ethan. He was the man who had it all, a future major general. And I had always been the village chief's daughter, running after him like a love-struck fool. I had once sworn I would marry him no matter what. But after everything that happened in my past life, no, this time, I'd choose Noah. And I was determined to make it happen. Ethan didn't know that my heart had already left him. The whole village knew about my obsession with him. They thought I was crazy to let him go, and I was fine with that. I had spent so many years trying to be the perfect wife to a man who only ever loved someone else. In the life before this one, Ethan had never given me his heart. He had married me, yes, but it was all for appearances. He never truly loved me. And on our wedding day, he brought home an orphan boy. He said the boy was the child of a fallen comrade, someone he had been close to in the army. I thought I was doing the right thing. I raised him, loved him as my own, only to find out in the end that he wasn't my child at all. And Ethan wasn't incapable of love. No, he had loved Megan Lee, my cousin, the village beauty, and kept his heart pure for her. All those years I spent believing in a lie. When I found out the truth, it nearly killed me. I'd barged into his study on our golden wedding anniversary, a moment that should have been filled with joy. Instead, I found Ethan's walls lined with pictures of Megan, each photo screaming that he had loved her the entire time. The shock was too much for me. The boy I'd raised with my own hands ripped my oxygen mask off in that hospital room, mocking me. If it weren't for you, he spat, my mom wouldn't have died a hidden mistress. And then, I died. And when I died, I saw Ethan and Megan buried together, hand in hand, while my ashes were tossed into a muddy pond. That was the moment I swore to myself I wouldn't let them have each other in this life. I wouldn't be their fool again. I chose Noah Brooks. He may not have had the title of Major General, but he had something Ethan would never have, a heart that was real, a heart that could love without pretenses. 3 days into my decision, I encountered Ethan on an ox cart heading to town. The educated youths on the cart snickered as they saw me. So, Tina Lee's your dog now, Ethan? She's been following you around like a lost puppy. She's already got the banquet ready. Can't even go to town without her tagging along. The laughter stung. It was the same as before. Ethan's face twisted with impatience, a look of disgust I had learned to recognize too well. Tina Lee, are you that desperate to marry me? He snapped. You had your family prepare the banquet without my consent, and now the whole village thinks I'm marrying some country bumpkin. I clenched my fists. That old sting from my past life surged in me, but this time, I was different. I don't need your consent, Ethan, I said, my voice calm but firm. I'm not marrying you. I never will. The cart erupted in laughter. Ethan's educated friends had tears in their eyes from laughing so hard. Ethan's gaze flicked to me, confused. So now you're playing hard to get? He sneered. Who else would you marry? If you're holding a banquet in the village, it has to be me. Everyone knows you'll marry no one but me. His words hit me like a slap. How dare he assume I would be tethered to him forever? I had been a fool before, but not anymore. I glared at him. You think you own me? You don't. You never did. The laughter around me grew louder, but it didn't matter. I had finally broken free. I don't need your approval for anything, I muttered under my breath. As the cart made its way toward town, I didn't even look at Ethan. Instead, I looked ahead, picturing Noah's face. He was nothing like Ethan. He didn't have a fancy uniform or the title of Major General, but he had something far more important: honesty. I felt a sudden surge of warmth in my chest. Noah wasn't playing games. He didn't manipulate people, didn't have a hidden agenda. He had quietly agreed to marry me. Noah was a man who believed in love, and that was everything I needed. I wasn't going back to Ethan, ever, but Ethan wouldn't let me go that easily. Later, that day, when I returned home, I saw Megan Lee in my wedding dress. My wedding dress, the one I had carefully ordered from the finest tailor, the one I had planned to wear to marry Noah. There she was, parading around in it, as if she had a right to it. The fabric hung off her like it was nothing. She looked at me with that sly smile of hers, the same smile that had ruined my life in the past. Ethan wanted to see it, Tina, she said, her voice sweet like honey, but the malice in her eyes was unmistakable. He wanted to see how it would look on me. Rage boiled inside me. This wasn't just a stolen dress, it was a stolen life. My life. Before I could even stop myself, I charged at her. Who gave you the right to wear this? I demanded, shoving her back. She stumbled but only smirked. Ethan was there, of course. He grabbed my arm roughly, yanking me away from her. Stop it, Tina, he said, his voice cold. It's just a dress. It's not worth fighting over. I saw red. No, I hissed. It's not just a dress. It's the last piece of you I have to let go. I turned to leave, but not before hearing Megan's voice behind me, taunting me. Noah is so lucky. You know, Ethan has always been mine, and now I have everything. Her words stung. Ethan had always belonged to her, but not anymore. This time, it was my turn. The next few days felt like a blur, a whirlwind of emotions I couldn't control, and yet, I was finally free of the chains I had once worn like a second skin. It wasn't just Ethan that was holding me back. It was the weight of the past life, the guilt, the shame of being someone's second choice. But now, it was all different. This time, I had Noah.it was the day before the wedding banquet. The whole village was buzzing with excitement, everyone gossiping about me marrying Noah Brooks, the so-called pig fodder cutter. The mockery didn't faze me anymore. I had made my choice, and it was a choice for myself. Noah wasn't the powerful man Ethan was, but Noah had something far more valuable. He had integrity. He didn't need to play games. He didn't need to prove anything. He simply wanted to make me happy. But as the evening drew closer, I knew Ethan wouldn't let this go easily. He never did. And sure enough, as I walked toward my front door, I saw him standing there, waiting. He was with his educated youth friends, the same ones who laughed at me on the cart. Their smirking faces twisted into mocking expressions as they saw me approach. Tina Lee, Ethan called, his voice dripping with condescension. Where do you think you're going? Your wedding feast is tomorrow. You can't just run off without saying a word. His eyes glinted with that familiar arrogance, the one that made me think he could manipulate me into anything. I stopped in my tracks, feeling the weight of his gaze on me, but I didn't flinch. I'm marrying Noah Brooks, Ethan. This time, it's really happening. No more delays, no more games. Ethan's expression darkened. You think you can just run off and leave me? No one leaves me, Tina. You regret this. I promise you. His tone was so cold it sent a shiver down my spine. But I didn't back down. You're not a part of my life anymore, Ethan, I said, my voice steady but with an edge of finality. You're not even a memory. He didn't respond immediately, his eyes narrowing as if he was trying to figure out if I was bluffing. But when he spoke again, it was with a low growl of frustration. You'll always be mine, Tina. No matter what you say, no matter who you marry. I know you'll always come back to me. You always do. I felt a pang of doubt twist in my stomach, but I crushed it. I wasn't going back to him. Not this time. I'm not coming back, Ethan. And you can't stop me. I turned and walked away from him, feeling his gaze burning into my back, but I didn't look back. For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of Ethan Carter. The next day, the village was alive with excitement. The air was thick with tension as the wedding preparations were underway. The villagers were eager to see how the daughter of the village chief, once so desperate for Ethan, would marry someone like Noah. But the truth was, I didn't care what they thought. Noah and I were about to start our life together, and nothing would stop me. When Noah arrived at my house, he looked even more handsome than I remembered. His suit was perfectly tailored, his dark eyes sharp and full of determination. He was a man who knew what he wanted, and what he wanted was me. He walked toward me, and for the first time in my life, I felt the ground beneath me steady. This was where I was meant to be. Noah smiled, taking my hand in his. Ready? I nodded, feeling a surge of emotion I couldn't quite place. For once, I felt truly seen, truly understood. But then, my world was thrown off balance again. I was so caught up in the moment that I didn't notice the commotion outside until it was too late. Ethan had arrived. He strode into the yard, flanked by his educated youth friends, their faces twisted into smug expressions. They were all staring at me, like they had some sort of right to be there. But the look on Ethan's face, his eyes, filled with desperation, shook me to my core. "Tina," Ethan called, his voice laced with anger. "You're making a huge mistake." "Noah, really? You're going to throw everything away for him?" I held my ground, feeling the weight of his words crash down on me. But I couldn't let him control me anymore. Not now. Not ever again. "I'm not throwing anything away, Ethan," I said, my voice firm, my gaze unwavering. "I'm building something new, something real." Ethan's eyes flashed with fury, but it quickly morphed into something darker, more dangerous. He stepped closer to me, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "I gave you everything," he hissed. "I loved you. You were mine. And now you want to throw all of that away for Noah Brooks, a man who has nothing." I could feel the anger rising in me, but I tamped it down. I wasn't going to let him win this time. "Everything?" I scoffed. "You gave me nothing but lies. You never loved me, Ethan. You never cared. You were always too busy chasing after Megan Lee, and I was just your backup." "I won't play that game anymore." The silence between us was thick, like the air before a storm. Ethan's face twisted with rage. "You think you're better than me now? You think Noah's going to take care of you? You'll always be beneath me, Tina. Always." I felt my hands tremble, my heart pounding in my chest, but I refused to let him see my fear. "I don't care what you think, Ethan," I said, my voice low but strong. "Noah is the man I want, not you, and nothing you say can change that." Ethan's eyes flicked to Noah, who was standing off to the side, a quiet presence. Noah's expression was unreadable, but there was a calm in his eyes that Ethan could never have. It was a quiet confidence, something I had never seen in Ethan. Ethan finally turned away, throwing one last, venomous look at me. "You'll regret this," he muttered. "You'll see." But this time, I didn't care. This time, I was choosing my own path. I was no longer the girl who would do anything for Ethan. I was someone stronger, someone who had finally learned to live for herself, and I wasn't going to let Ethan ruin this moment. Not now, not ever again. The wedding banquet was nothing short of breathtaking. As I stood beside Noah, looking at the crowd of villagers gathered around us, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. There was joy, real joy and relief, but there was also a gnawing tension in the air, a sense of unease that I couldn't shake. Ethan's words from earlier still echoed in my head. "You regret this." It was like a shadow hanging over the day, threatening to ruin everything. Noah noticed the shift in my mood. He turned to me, his gaze soft yet knowing. "You're doing the right thing, Tina. You're where you're meant to be," he said, his voice steady, the words an anchor I didn't realize I needed. I nodded, grateful for his unwavering support. But as the hours were on and the feast progressed, I could feel the weight of Ethan's presence lurking in the background. Even though he wasn't physically there, his influence lingered. I caught glimpses of the educated youth, their mocking eyes and whispered conversations, like they were all waiting for something to happen. But I wasn't going to let them see me crumble. Not now. The banquet hall buzzed with laughter, chatter, and the clinking of glasses. I tried my best to enjoy the moment, focusing on Noah, who was by my side, constantly checking to make sure I was okay. But then, just as the evening began to settle into a more relaxed rhythm, the door swung open. My heart skipped a beat. Ethan, he stood there, framed in the doorway, like he had every right to be there. He was flanked by a few of his friends, the ones who had been with him all these years, those who had helped keep me tethered to him. They had followed him into the hall with their smug expressions, making their way toward me as though they were attending my wedding as invited guests. Ethan's gaze locked onto mine, and for a split second, I saw the faintest flicker of something, regret, maybe, or fear, but it quickly vanished, replaced by that all too familiar arrogance. He walked towards us with purpose, his eyes never leaving me, until he stood right in front of Noah and me. The room grew quiet, the laughter and music fading into the background as everyone turned their attention to Ethan's arrival. He didn't even acknowledge Noah, his eyes cold and unblinking. Instead, he focused entirely on me. "You really thought you could just leave me behind?" Ethan's voice was sharp, his words laced with venom. "You think this man can give you what I could? You're making a fool of yourself." I took a deep breath, gathering the strength I needed. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for. The moment I had feared, where Ethan would try to break me down once again. But not this time. "No, Ethan," I said, my voice unwavering. "The the words cutting through the tension like a knife. "You're the one who's making a fool of yourself. You think you can just waltz in here and manipulate me again? Not anymore. You lost me a long time ago." Ethan's eyes flared with fury. "You don't know what you're doing, Tina. You've made a terrible mistake. I gave you everything, and this is how you repay me." He turned to Noah, his tone dripping with disdain. "You're nothing. You don't even have the courage to face who you really are, do you?" Noah didn't react. His jaw clenched, but I could see the hurt in his eyes. He knew Ethan was trying to provoke him, trying to create a scene, but Noah stayed calm, his hand resting on my arm. His quiet strength was what I had always needed. "I don't care about your threats, Ethan," I said, my voice firm but full of quiet rage. "I don't care about your games, your lies, your manipulation. I've made my choice, and it's not you." Ethan's gaze flickered with something darker, something far more dangerous. "You think you can just leave and never look back?" He spat. "I'm not going to let you ruin your life like this." I shook my head, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "My life was already ruined by you, Ethan. You and Megan. You've made me the fool for too long, but not anymore. I've had enough." The silence in the room was suffocating. The villagers watched intently, some with pity, others with curiosity. I could feel their eyes on me, but I didn't care. This was my moment, and I wasn't going to let Ethan take it away from me. Ethan's face twisted with anger, and for a moment, I thought he might lash out. But then he did something unexpected. He turned on his heel and stormed out of the banquet hall, his friends trailing behind him in stunned silence. I stood there, my heart still pounding, but a weight had lifted from my chest. Ethan was gone, and for the first time, I felt truly free. Noah looked at me, his gaze filled with admiration. "You handled that with grace," he said, his voice low and sincere. "I'm proud of you." I smiled softly, feeling a warmth spread through me. "It's not grace," I whispered. "It's freedom." The rest of the evening passed without incident, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still hanging over me, like a dark cloud threatening to rain down at any moment. As the banquet wound down, I noticed a few familiar faces from the village. They were all gathered in clusters, talking quietly, their eyes darting back to me and Noah. Their whispers grew louder as the night wore on, and it was clear they were gossiping about everything, about Ethan's outburst, about me and Noah, about how they thought things should have gone. But no matter what they said, I didn't care anymore. Noah and I walked hand in hand through the village, the cool night air wrapping around us. The stars were bright, and for the first time, I felt like they were actually meant for me. We were finally going to be okay. But as we approached my house, my heart stopped. There, standing at the doorway, was Megan Lee. Her eyes were filled with a cold, calculating malice. She stepped forward, her smile twisted with something darker. "Tina," she purred, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I see you've made your choice. But let me remind you, no one escapes Ethan Carter. You think you're winning, but you're not. He'll always be the one you turn to when it all falls apart." I met her gaze, my anger flaring once more. But this time, I didn't feel the same helplessness. "You're wrong, Megan," I said, my voice firm. "Ethan is done, and so are you." Her eyes widened, a flash of fear crossing her face for just a moment, before her smug expression returned. "We'll see about that, Tina. We'll see." With that, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows. I stood there, taking a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words echo in my mind. But Noah's hand on my arm pulled me back to the present. He looked at me with a mix of concern and understanding. "We'll handle this together," he said, his words a promise. I nodded, my heart pounding with anticipation. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions. The banquet had ended, but the war wasn't over. Megan's words continued to haunt me, gnawing at the edges of my confidence. "Ethan will always be the one you turn to when it all falls apart." Her voice echoed in my mind like a broken record. Was she right? Was this all just a phase? Could Noah and I really make it work when everything was so uncertain? But I refused to let doubt take root. I'd made my choice, and I wasn't going to back down. Not now, not ever. Noah could sense the shift in my mood. He was patient with me, always supportive, but I could see the concern in his eyes. He had been nothing but kind, gentle, and caring. But this world, the world I had left behind with Ethan, was far more complicated than I had imagined. I wasn't just leaving behind a man. I was leaving behind a whole history, a whole life, a life that I had once clung to so desperately, thinking it was all I deserved. But now I had a chance to build something new, something better. The problem was, the ghosts of my past weren't going to let me go that easily. Ethan didn't disappear like I had hoped. In fact, he became more persistent. The calls started coming in the middle of the night. Sometimes they were from him, sometimes from his friends, trying to convince me that he was the right choice, that I was making a mistake. I blocked the numbers, but they found other ways to reach me. They knew how to play on my vulnerabilities, how to remind me of my past weaknesses. One evening, after a long day of helping Noah with the farm, I returned home to find a letter waiting for me. The envelope was thick, heavy, and sealed with a wax stamp I recognized instantly. It was from Ethan. My hands trembled as I tore it open. Inside, there was a single piece of paper with a short, simple message. I know what you're really after. If you want to make this right, you know where to find me. A chill ran through me. I didn't even have to think twice about what that meant. Ethan wasn't done with me, and if I didn't confront him now, I knew he'd keep coming, keep trying to reel me back into his world. No one noticed the shift in my mood that night. What is it, Tina? You look like you've seen a ghost. I shook my head, trying to suppress the panic rising in my chest. It's nothing, I lied, though I knew Noah could see through me. Just some old memories. Noah stepped closer, his hand gently cupping my cheek. You don't have to do this alone. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. His words, simple and kind, brought a wave of warmth over me. For once, I didn't feel like I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. But deep down, I knew what I had to do. I had to confront the man who had broken me before he destroyed everything I was trying to build. I didn't tell Noah about the letter. I knew it would only worry him more, and there was nothing he could do about it. Ethan was my problem to solve. The next morning, I left the house early, taking the long walk down the dirt road to the place where Ethan had once lived, his family's house on the outskirts of the village. I had to end this. I couldn't live in fear of his threats forever. As I approached the house, I saw him standing there, waiting for me. Ethan, his presence was like a shadow, and it swallowed the warmth of the day. He was leaning against a tree, arms crossed, staring at me with those cold, calculating eyes that had once been the source of so much pain. You came, he said, his voice low, almost satisfied. I knew you would. You always come back to me, Tina. Always. I felt the anger rise in me, but I held it in check. I'm not here to play your games, Ethan, I said, my voice steady. I'm done with you. I'm done with everything you ever did to me. His eyes flickered with something: hurt, regret, or maybe just frustration. You think you can just walk away from everything? From me? From us? I shook my head. There's no us, Ethan. There never was. It was always you, Megan, and your army of lies. I was just the fool who didn't see it. For a long moment, Ethan didn't speak. His expression hardened, and I could see the walls going up behind his eyes. This wasn't the man I once knew, the one who used to smile at me with affection. This was a man who was losing control, and I wasn't going to let him drag me down with him. You can't be serious, Ethan said after a long pause. You think Noah can give you what I could? He's nothing compared to me. I felt a pang of doubt in my chest. Ethan's words had always carried weight, even when they were lies. But I didn't let it show. Noah is everything you're not, Ethan. He's real. He doesn't need to tear people apart to build himself up. He doesn't need to play games with my heart. He's someone I can trust. Ethan's face twisted in anger. You think he'll save you, Tina? You think he is the one who'll love you the way I could? You'll regret this. You'll come crawling back to me. I felt the familiar sting of his words, but it didn't hurt the way it once did. I had already made my choice. I don't regret anything, Ethan. Not anymore. This time, I'm choosing me. There was a long, tense silence, and for a moment, I thought Ethan might try to grab me, to pull me back into his world of manipulation. But instead, he just stared at me, his gaze filled with disbelief and something darker: fear. Then he did something I didn't expect. He stepped back. I can't make you love me, Tina, he said quietly, but I'm not done with you. Not yet. I turned and walked away, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew he wasn't finished, but I also knew something he didn't. I was stronger now. I was finally free. When I got home, I found Noah waiting for me, his eyes full of concern. Are you okay? I nodded. my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm fine." I ended it, for good this time. Noah stepped forward, wrapping his arms around me, pulling me close. "You did the right thing, Tina. You don't need him. You never did." And in that moment, I realized he was right. Ethan had always been a shadow in my life, something I had clung to because it was the only thing I knew. But now, with Noah, I was free to build a life I wanted, one that was based on trust, love, and truth. The future wasn't perfect. There would be challenges ahead. But for the first time, I knew I was no longer the woman who had been held captive by her past. I was free, and no one could take that away from me. As I looked at Noah, a sense of peace settled over me. This was where I was meant to be. The world was ours to shape,